Hello, welcome to lesson 9 of Dani's GWTP course. On this lesson we will be talking about actions. Every time you need to do anything on the server, you use an action. So if you need to request data, to send data, or if you need the server to do any kind of procedure, you will use a GWTP action. For every action you have to implement three classes: the action itself, which is the request class, the action result, which is the class that will return to you from the request, and the action handler that runs on the server, processing the action and generating the action result. To dispatch actions, you will use the dispatch async interface. You inject it and you got it. And to get the result, we use an async callback. So, let's see actions in action. Here on my client package, I'm going to click the GWTP button and select action to create an action. Actions can have any name, so I'll call it get first. It doesn't have to end in action. Here are the action fields, the request fields, and I want to send some text to the server, and here are the result fields. I will also get a text from the server. Here you put your action handler package, which is at what package in the server the action handler class will be added to. I'll just use the server package. Let's click finish. And here we have our action handler, our action, and our result. Well, I want to change something real quick here on the action, and I'll implement the isSecured function to return false. Why I am doing that? Because GWTP has a protection against cross-site request forgery attacks, and we have to set up this protection before using any actions, but we are going to see how to do it on the next page of the presentation. So let's use our action. What I want to do is on the first presenter, when the user clicks the button there, instead of just sending the user to the second presenter with the value it typed on the box as an argument, I'm going to send that value to the server, process it, change it somehow, return, and then send the user to the second page. Let's see how we can do that. First thing, we need to inject the dispatch async interface. Done. We'll need a callback to process the response, and this is an async callback of the type get first result. Call get first callback. If something goes wrong either on the server or between the server and the client, you will get a call on the onFailure method. If everything goes well, you get a call on the onSuccess method. And so on the onSuccess, I want my user to be redirected to the second presenter with the text from the server as the parameter here. So I already have the dispatch async injected. I already have the callback implemented. So let's instantiate the action. using the text box as the value as the argument, and let's dispatch the action. Let's execute the action. We do that with the execute method. So here is everything you need. Inject the dispatch, instantiate your action, call execute, and that will return to the callback when we get a response from the server. The only thing we need to implement right now is the server part, which is that class over here. We usually implement the undo function because of an advanced feature that GWTP have that's called batching actions, which is a way to run a list of actions on the server using only one request. And if the second action fails, it will come back and undo the first one and just return a simple error message to the client, so you know that nothing was changed on the server. So it's atomic. Either everything goes through or nothing goes through. And you do that with the undo function. So let's implement our execute method here. And what I want to do here is get the text from the action and transform it a little bit. So let's use to lowercase. And I'll return the get first result with that text. Here we should be talking about server-side things, but that's not much GWTP anymore. GWTP runs on the client mostly. Here you will be using something like MongoDB or some database or any Java class to do your actions. But what is important to know is that here is where you put your code that's going to be running on the server. Well, everything should be fine now. Let's start our server. And here, if I type something only with capital letters, when I click that button, I'm going to send an action to the server. It will bring that string to lowercase, send it back to me, and then I'm going to navigate to the second presenter page. And this is what I got back from the server, and something is lowercase. So our action is working. That's how you do actions. So every web app could be attacked with a technique called cross-site request forgery. How does that work? Well, your user is visiting your site, so his browser have the session cookie, and it's logged into your website. And suppose this user is accessing his email in a webmail, for example, and it's led to click a link or load an image that will make a request to your web server, and your web server will understand it as a request to delete something or change some security setting or change the user password or something like that. And your server gets the request and checks. Does it come from the same IP that the user is logged in? Yes, it does. Does it come from the same browser? Do we have the session cookie on the request? Yes, we do. So the request should be authentic, but it's not. It comes from another tab, another domain, another website. To protect against it, we need a second cookie sent with every request. The browser will send one on the HTTP header, So we should send another one in the content, in the data of our request. And that's what GWTP does. It sends and checks a security cookie, another security cookie with every request. How do we use it? First, we have to tell our GWTP what's the security cookie name for our project. There's, there's nothing too secret about the security cookie name you're going to use. It doesn't have to be unknown for everyone else. It's actually very easy to discover what name you used, but you have to pick a name, so we have to configure the framework with what name we are using. We have to do that on the client through GIN and on the server through GUIs. And we need the server to set the cookie on the first request that the client sends to it. And we do that by adding a filter that will act on the HTML request that the browser sends when it's opening your application. So let's do that. First, I'm going to the action we created, and I'm removing the eSecured method I have added earlier. I'll reload the backend server and reload my page on the client. I'll type anything here and it doesn't work. Why it didn't work? Because GWTP detected a possible cross-site request forgery attack, and even to suggest that we have to set up the security cookie. So let's do that. So first we go to GIN, to our client module, and we are going to use the bind constant function, every constant annotated with security cookie dot class. I'll bind it to my cookie. So it's not a secret, so we could use my cookie. On the server, what GIN does on the server, GUIS does, what GIN does on the client, GUIS does on the server side. So we have to come to the dispatch servlet module and also bind the constant here. So bind constant annotated with security cookie dot class to my cookie. So both the server side and the client side know what's the name of our cookie. And now we have to filter every HTML request through the HTTP session security cookie filter dot class. With that, our request should now work. We have set up the security cookie thing, and we have our web app protected against cross-site request forgery attacks. So I'll stop the server here, start it again, reload the page here, and it's working again. So now our action went through, and it's really authentic because it was sent by our web application and not some webmail or some malicious website that a user was led into. That is an awesome feature that GWTP have. You just have to use actions. The last thing we will talk about is manual review. And every time the presenter needs some data to show to the user at its start, we should use manual review. And let's see why. So let's go to our first presenter and let's add something here that have to be requested from the server before showing that presenter to the user. So I'll stop the server here because we are going to create a lot of one class, at least 3 classes. Let's create an action. I'll call it get data. No request fields, but I need some data back. I'll use server as the action handler package. Created it. And here I just return new get data result with some data. Here is some data. But since we are working localhost here, I want to simulate some internet latency, and I'll make my thread sleep for I guess here is milliseconds, so 200 milliseconds. Okay, let's handle the exception here. So this request should take about 200 milliseconds to run, and that's an acceptable latency for an international connection. And here is some data. And on the first presenter, I will add that data to the text box here. So let's do that. Since we want to start that request when we are preparing to show the presenter, we will start it on the prepare from request method of the presenter. We have talked about it already. So get data action equals new get data. I have to inject the dispatch async interface. Oh, I already have one. Good. And so I need the async callback with get data result. Get data callback equals new. And when I have the data back, I want to call getView.get first box, set text to result.getData. So what I'm doing is when the request is back, the response is returns from the server, I'll get the data, which is a string, and set it as the text value of our text box. So now I just have to dispatch to get data callback. Let's see it working. Well, here we saw, let's increase the sleep time here. Too fast. So 2 seconds, because it's easier to show. Here we see that at first the user saw first text here, and 2 seconds later he saw here is some data, and the user might not like that for usability issues. And so usually when you have a request necessary for you to show the presenter for the user, then you should use manual review so you have more of a smooth experience and not something like that. See. So how do we do that? First, we have to implement the use manual review method on the presenter. It's just to tell to GWTP that we want to do manual review. We have to dispatch the action from prepare for statement. It's a requirement now. And we have to update our async callback with manual review callback.create. And what this will do is that on either on success or on failure, after you process the callback, it is going to show the presenter. It's going to review the presenter. So let's do that on the first presenter. So as I said, first we implement use manual review and we set it to return true. We are already making the request from the prepare from request method, and we just have to update our async callback with manual review callback dot create. And it should be working now. Wow, there is a problem here. Ah, okay. I have to use this. We have to pass the presenter along here. So let's see it working. And we are waiting. Okay, it didn't work. Why? Because we still don't have access to the first box here, because the onReset when we on the onReset method here, we are changing its value. So I'll have to remove that line. Sorry about that. And now, well, we can access the first box here. It is just that the onReset was changing the value again. So reload. And here is some data. So when the user see the page, your every bit of data that you need is already there. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to the GWTP Google group. You have the URL there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it and learned. Thank you.